No. Quick answer, no. But anyways, hello guys, my name is SoulArts and welcome back to another video. It is so good to actually do a regular video. Yay, it's been like 2 uploads and I didn't have a regular video. I just had some bullshit. So it's good to be back. With that out of the way, I would like to discuss, is this RWBY's last volume? I see so many people say it is. I see so many people say this should be its last volume, and I just want to give my 2 cents. So, should this be RWBY's last volume? In my opinion, no. It hasn't finished its characters. This goes for main characters, this goes for side characters, this goes for villains, this goes for so many characters. So many characters aren't finished, and if you make this RWBY's last volume, either a majority of characters are going to be rushed and or a lot of stories are just going to be incomplete, and I think that is terrible. You do not want fans to go back to watch this episode or to go back and watch this series or go back and watch this volume and sit here and then dissect it to say this was terrible, this was rushed, the pacing was lacking, the characters felt out of sync. You just don't want that in general. So should this be RWBY's last volume from that standpoint? Hell no, I think that's terrible. Now, can this be RWBY's last volume? Of course it can be. Any volume can be RWBY's last if the writers really wish to push for it, and volume 10 could be RWBY's last volume. However, we have a lot of world building that just hasn't been done. We have a lot of character motivations that just aren't finished. We have a lot of things that just aren't seen through. So volume 10 getting a rush finale just would feel super, and I mean super terrible for the series, for just everything in general. Now, I know some people will say, well, something is better than nothing, and in my opinion, I just don't believe that is true. Yes, sometimes something is better than nothing, but a rushed and bad ending can do more and can do worse for a series overall, for its legacy, for what it's just, like I said, remembered by. It's very disastrous. And in my opinion, something isn't better than nothing, at least in RWBY's case. Now, in my personal opinion, if RWBY's something is better than nothing is actually a statement people make, I believe that it needs to be perfect. There would have to be no flaws in volume 10 for us to feel like this finale is just amazing. We could look back at it and say that's one of the best finales ever. This is probably like one of the greatest things we can get out of RWBY in of itself. I think that, in my personal opinion, is the only way we can all sit here and say RWBY did an amazing job with the finale, even if they rushed it for volume 10. Everything would have to be perfect, and I believe it would need to be a long volume. You can't just have the typical RWBY 10 to maybe 14 episodes. This would have to be a long volume with maybe about 16, 18, 24, maybe you push that limit, maybe 32. It would have to be a extremely long, condensed, and just lengthy, you know, and it has to touch on everything just for it to be good. It just can't rush through those things, because if it's not perfect, it's just going to be sloppy, and the whole series legacy and everything will kind of just be stained depending on who you ask and people of that nature. So as stated, can this be RWBY's last volume? Yes. Will it? I don't think so. And should it? No, I think that's terrible. Now I have to ask this question. Should RWBY have more volumes, and how many? Now, I think RWBY should have more volumes after volume 10. Now, what should they do in volume 10? What should they do in further volumes down the line? And how many volumes do I think RWBY should have? Well, all of these are interesting questions, so I'll just try to break it down and give you it very quickly. I think if RWBY wanted to be short and concise, I think maybe 12 volumes. I think if RWBY wanted to do a good and or better, I think maybe 13 or 14. And if you really wanted to drag RWBY out, I think maybe you could get it to volume 16 before it ends. I don't think anything over 16 is necessary. I think it would be super dragged out by then, but I think if you really wanted to like make this process elongated and try to cover everything, 16 volumes sounds just about right. I think, in my personal opinion, I would settle for maybe 13 or 14 volumes, and I think if you wanted to just call it short, try to get everything slightly condensed but not rush everything in volume 10, you do 12 volumes. However, for this case and instance, I'll pull back a little bit and I'll meet in the middle and say, let's do volume 13. Let's say volume 13 is the ending for RWBY. How would I flesh out these volumes and what do I think would be good? Well, as I stated in numerous videos, I think RWBY has an issue with its plot and its characters. I think the plot is moving faster than the characters can catch up, meaning you have to pause the plot. That doesn't mean stop all the things that is happening, but have a necessary stop to where the characters can catch up and so that the characters can finish around the plot. So volume 10, That would be my setup volume. That would be my volume where I'm fleshing out these characters. I'm talking about RWBY's return. I'm talking about their feelings. Obviously, there's still going to be action here and there, and obviously things are going to still be planned in the background. But its central focus is going to be on the characters, whether it be Team RWBY, Juniper, side characters like Coffee. It's going to happen in my personal opinion. I think you need to flesh out these characters for the thing that's going to happen next, and that has to be big plot points. But Volume 10, keep it to the characters, make them relatable, make them interesting, make them be in character, and add growth. Growth comes in numerous ways, and I don't think everybody should just have trauma put on them. Have people go through different emotions, whether it's complicated or not. Put characters in situations where technically nobody's wrong, but technically nobody's right either. It's okay to feel human, and that's what these characters are rooted in. That's what every character and or thing in fiction is rooted in. Reality. I'm not saying everything has to be real, because some people watch these series to escape real life, but I am saying that these characters should at least feel relatable, and that relatability can at least push somebody or inspire someone and or help people. But those characters need to feel alive, those characters need to feel relatable, those characters need to go through hardship, and it needs to be shown and it needs to be expressed. And I think Volume 10 needs to focus on that, not just for Team RWBY, Juniper, or Coffee, but even for things like villains. So if Volume 10 focuses on fleshing out characters in small plot point, Volume 11 is going to be the big story point. Whether you want this volume to be set up or just diving directly into big story events, that is perfectly fine. Maybe Volume 11 focuses on relics being taken. That makes sense. Maybe a maiden being killed. Maybe us discovering who that other maiden is. Maybe we can get some character deaths because we had build up from Volume 10. It makes the character deaths more impactful, and that could also build on more for other characters. I think after Volume 11, whether a relic is taken, or maybe a maiden is killed, or maybe you have some character deaths, maybe multiple, maybe only a few, maybe only one. But after Volume 11 and all of that, you need kind of a break to rest, and you need kind of a break to reset, and that's when Volume 12 comes in. It's probably going to be the return to Beacon, it's probably going to be catching up with some old people, but it's also still going to be very plot heavy. It's going to be calming down before raising back up again to get into that final fight. So while the sadness is going to be there, it's going to be brief but lingering throughout all sorts of actions and character responses and how characters just act, move, and what they say. This can also show in expressions, fighting, or teamwork, things of that nature. It should be there, in my personal opinion. You should see that the war and the battle this has caused overall is taking a toll on these characters. Whether the heroes are winning or whether the heroes are losing, they should have a toll put on them. This is constant war, constant fighting, and at the end of the day, the main characters are still girls. And no, that's not in any weird way. It's to sit here and call them girls because they just don't know the real world like that. Yes, these characters are adults, but they don't have experience like characters like Crow and Raven. These are characters who are 17, 18, 19, maybe even 20 at this point. And when you're 18, 19, or 20, even 17, do you really believe you have a grasp of the world? Do you really believe in your mind you're some unstoppable adult and you know what reality is giving you and you know the consequences and things of that nature? No, you don't. You may feel like you have a grasp of it, you may feel like you have an understanding of it, but you don't have that experience, you don't have that wisdom. And even if that wisdom and experience is taught to you, you still have to experience it yourself. There's one thing to hear said wisdom, and there's one thing to feel said wisdom and understand it and go through it and grieve. And at that point, I think Volume 12 has to be the catalyst for all of that, while also preparing for Volume 13. And like I said, Volume 12 is going to focus on the pain, the hurts, but it's also going to build up that hope. It's also going to build up those plot points. And I think Volume 13 comes in where you get the big fight, you get the big moments, you get the big events, you get everything that we've been working for and aspiring for. You get characters' goals getting completed, whether it be in Volume 12 or Volume 13. You get these characters' goals coming full circle. You get them being the person they are while also recognizing who they used to be. Maybe they changed, maybe they haven't, maybe they recognize that is good, maybe they recognize that is bad. It doesn't matter at the end of the day. All that matters is these characters feel relatable, a theme is pushed, and it's written and executed well, in my personal opinion. Whether the heroes win or whether the heroes lose, at the end of the day, this is a story, and a story has to have a good ending, a story has to have a good message, and a story just has to feel good. And in my personal opinion, I think that's how volume 13 and the end of RWBY should be. Now, like I said, I would prefer 14 volumes. And if we got 14 volumes, then like I said, you just maybe space some of these out. Like I said, volume 12 is going to be the characters coming off of a lot of deaths and things of that nature. So guess what? If we add in an additional volume, you just push volume 13 to 14. Now you have an empty slot between volume 12 and volume 14. And that means that volume 13 should probably be set up for that big fight and those events happening. And then volume 14 should be that big fight. But in my personal opinion, I think the perfect length for RWBY is 14 volumes. I think it doesn't need to be anything more than that, and I think it covers everything that is practically needed. I think if you really wanted to, like I said, push this and expand this, 16 volumes, and that way you get 3 volumes of Vacuo, 3 volumes of Beacon, and that's the end of the series. But in my opinion, if you wanted to keep it standard, 2 volumes of Vacuo, 2 volumes of Beacon, and that's it. That's the end of the story. RWBY is now complete. Now, what does that mean for RWBY? Will RWBY magically be great and celebrated? Well, it all depends, I think, on these final volumes. I think RWBY can be something that is remembered by a lot of people, and not just for nostalgia purposes of volume 1 and 3 beating the golden days of RWBY, or how RWBY fell off, or the fans are so toxic, or things of this nature. I think RWBY can genuinely be known for a lot. I'm not gonna sit here and say that RWBY is perfect, but I enjoy RWBY. I like RWBY. It's one of my favorite series, and a lot of people feel that same way. It's not perfect, but it helps you through a lot, and you enjoy it for those things or those themes or whatever you enjoy it for. But I think if you want to go beyond that joy and push this into something that's amazing, like nominated for awards and turning extremely famous, and a lot of people getting their passion and love back for the series, and so many people coming in, whether it be animators or voice actors or singers or things of that nature, I think if you really lock in on the writing, lock in on the community, and truly push for the best and up all sorts of standards, I think the ending parts of RWBY will be some of its best, reconstruct the community, and overall put RWBY in a very positive and public image. But that's if, and I'm not saying it has to be perfect, but it just has to be good, great, or legendary. That's it. And that's not just for the finale, but that's just for the ending parts of RWBY. We're at the latter stages of it, and we know that. So we know this ride is gonna come to a close soon. If we can just nail this ending and do good, I think RWBY will be in a much better place and will be something amazing to be remembered by, and truly inspire so much more people and help so much more people. With that being said, I love you guys. I'll see you guys in the next video. Sorry I got so passionate. Hit that like button if you haven't already. Subscribe, because the subscriber count and stuff matters to YouTubers, and also, like, you know, people don't really subscribe to me like that, so it means a lot. But yeah, no, I love you guys. I'll see you guys in the next video, and peace.